I mean, this is such an encouraging moment, not a discouraging one. We had a fucking Democratic socialist run for a statewide gubernatorial seat, and she came within 3,000 votes. Historic levels of turnout. What are you talking about, man? 2 years ago, Zoran Mamdani was probably sitting around with a bunch of his friends in New York City DSA going, should I do this? Do you think we have a shot? And his friends were like, no, dude, what the are you talking about? And now, 2 years from that point, we had a Democratic socialist running for governor in a swing state. So we're gonna start with Crowley winning the Wisconsin primary. Obviously, that's a a minor upset, a minor bump, I would say, a minor bump in the road for democratic socialism through the electoral route here in the United States of America. I still believe in my heart of hearts that the People's Republic of Wisconsin is very much alive, is very much a reality. And I think last night's results actually showed that. This is not copium. This is not spin. I'm going to be, very sober. I'm going to be very sober in my assessment, in my analysis. Okay? There's going to be some critiques here, some of which I just, held close to the chest. I say sober analysis and assessment because Neera Tanden is incapable of delivering that because she's never sober. We lose, we organize, we win. Yeah. So first and foremost, let's get started. Francesca Hong was able to draw immense turnout. And she was able to do this without any national endorsements, any local major endorsements, no Mark Pecan endorsement, no Bernie endorsement, no AOC endorsement. I was the de facto largest surrogate for the candidate. Okay? The fact that she was able to, alongside the local DSA chapters, the fact that this campaign was able to bring this much turnout is incredible. Okay? It is incredible. Do not let anybody discourage you. Do not let anybody try to undermine that accomplishment. Because the media will try to do it, right? The media is going to try to do this. They're going to say, oh, dude, the DSA, it's over. I guess, Abdul El-Sayed wins by one point. That's basically the same as a defeat for DSA-aligned candidates, even though Abdul's not a part of the Democratic Socialists of America. David Crowley, the establishment candidate, ekes out a victory by even a smaller margin. And they go, the establishment bulwark is alive and well. The Democratic Socialism momentum is over. We've done it. And it's very funny. They're not even hiding their biases at this point. I think it's important to show that contradiction. It's important to show that hypocrisy. It's important to stress how much these guys are biased in the direction of establishment candidates. I'm sorry. There are a lot of people that get consulting gigs with these corporate lobbies that then also moonlight as commentators on CNN, MS Now, that spend less time doing real journalism and more time backseat quarterbacking, specifically at the behest of the corporate influence, right? Here it is. Politico. Progressives didn't get the big election night they wanted. The razor-thin margin only deepens divisions over the future of the Democratic Party. The far left hits a wall. The movement had been riding high off a string of primary victories this cycle, but Francesca Hong's loss Wednesday led to an immediate round of finger-pointing. It's very obvious what's going on. I hope people see it. I think people have the capacity to see through it, but there are obviously very important factors in this race that must be addressed. right? So let's just break it down piece by piece. Okay? Let's just break it down piece by piece. First of all, so many roses, so many flowers must be delivered to the Wisconsin DSA chapters. You guys did the damn thing. Francesca Hong's campaign was great as well, all things considered. Okay? The only reason why this seems like a major, spectacular upset is because pollsters had no way of interpreting the correct data and where people were at. It's just the reality. You're leading by 20 points all the time. You're the front runner the entire time. And then all of a sudden you lose by 3,000 votes. That's an upset. But if you adjust it to a different timeline, if you look back 2 years ago at where Democratic Socialists would be at, I mean, this is a spectacular victory. This is a spectacular movement. Okay? The very fact that we are capable of launching the candidacies and the campaigns of people who were state legislators that had no name recognition whatsoever and be competitive and draw historic records, historic record turnout in a statewide swing state gubernatorial run, that is immense. That is incredible. That is impossible to ignore or impossible to discount. Just so you understand. And to be able to do that without national prog endorsements, it's all the better. So remember, when people try to discourage you in this moment, be like, okay, sure. Okay. It seems like you're very mad for some reason. For something that is utterly immaterial, you seem very upset. If we are to be ignored, why do you spend such a good deal of time worrying about what we're doing? So yeah, the battle might be lost, but the war is not over, and we will win. So let's talk about some of the problems in the campaign. Okay, from the jump, Francesca Hong was far too pleasant and far too kind. Okay, I thought maybe Wisconsin really expected that and really enjoyed that and really liked it. Perhaps part of the reason why I thought that they liked it a lot was because I was looking at the same polls everyone else was, right? And the reality is, when you are in a contentious national media environment, when your race is becoming nationalized, you have to be ready for the spotlight. The lights can't get too bright. And unfortunately for Francesca, her responses left a lot to be desired, left a lot on the table. The Thanksgiving gate and all this stuff, they were utterly immaterial in the grand scheme of things, especially when weighed against the power of the Tony Evers endorsement, which was far more consequential than the Gretchen Whitmer endorsement in the Michigan race, and the consolidation of support amongst establishment Democrats. But the earned media that was genuinely negative up and down every TV station for the primary electorate that is still singularly focused on the electability narratives, it hurt. It certainly hurt. But the only reason why it did is because there was no adequate jujitsu. There was no moment of reframing the conversation. I do truly believe that if Francesca Hong, this is a coulda, woulda, shoulda moment, but I do believe that if her comms were a little bit tighter and she turned around and said, look, I love Thanksgiving. You know who's canceling Thanksgiving this year? Donald Trump. You know who loves Donald Trump? Tom Tiffany. That's what we're trying to fix here. The affordability crisis is what's canceling Thanksgiving. Okay? That moment, if she was capable of taking the national attention and flipping it back to the issues, that probably would have helped her out, because we're talking about very slim margins here. Right? We're talking about super, super narrow margins. So that's important. That's important to understand. That's important to address. Right? You got to take every attack, every moment in the spotlight, and be able to turn it back to your policies, back to what you believe in. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to do that. Now, the bigger issue, I would say, is the fundraiser problem. The campaign had money, but they didn't have damn near enough money to run linear TV ads. A lot of conversations are taking place on election Twitter from knowledgeable parties that don't fully understand the dynamics of this race. And they're like, why wouldn't they buy TV ads? I myself have talked about the importance of linear TV ads. It is important. But a part of the reason why they weren't capable of purchasing linear TV ads is because it's very expensive. There's no outside expenditures coming into the race. There's no $3 million being dumped into TV ad expenditure from an outside spender like David Crowley got. And we know it's true. We know that not running linear television ads is a major issue. It's a major issue. Okay? Because we saw Francesca Hong perform in rural markets where some of the rural districts, the counties that were not in the Wisconsin television market actually went to Francesca Hong. Those are the markets where Crowley's team did not spend any money on linear TV. But I do think, all things considered, I do think that a lot of people are making much more hay over the way that she communicated herself on Thanksgiving Gate. I don't think it's as consequential as people think it is. It's just not good to get national attention with a ton of earned media that's negative. But that was going to happen regardless, right? That was going to happen regardless. It wasn't about, it wasn't necessarily about her position or inconsistency on Thanksgiving or anything like that. It was more so that she couldn't reframe that, because that's always going to happen. This is a contentious media environment. Corporate media is always going to attack us. Corporate media is always going to attack our candidates until we become such an undeniable force in American politics that they have to play ball, that they feel the necessity to play ball, to actually, make nice. Okay? And we've seen this take place in different races as well, and we've been able to out-organize these sorts of attacks. But the reality of Thanksgiving Gate is overstated. I think people greatly dismissed Francesca Hong and that momentum and that movement in Wisconsin to a major degree. Okay? And when I say people dismissed it, I'm talking not just the electability perverts on the establishment Democratic Party's consultant side. I'm not talking about the corporate media. I'm talking about left-adjacent social Democrat election understanders. Okay? There were a lot of people who were like, she's a dog shit candidate. You. The f*** are you talking about? She's a dog shit candidate. Have you brought out 300,000 voters in a swing state? Suck my cock. She's a dog shit candidate. The f*** have you done? 300,000 votes with no national endorsement. She's a dog shit candidate. Who the f*** are you? Seriously. I was very frustrated with a lot of DSA, even DSA affiliated people, even DSA accounts on the timeline getting baited by the media narrative. Now, one point that I will make on, and this dovetails into woke one, woke two discourse. A lot of people who think they are critical of corporate media and the way certain things get covered were baited all the same. They were baited all the same. Why were they so baited? Why did they get their notes from the Caitlin Collins interview? Is that the appropriate way to frame an issue? If you are, if you are with this movement, is that the appropriate way to analyze and interpret? You think our candidates are not going to get attacked? Have some backbone. You think establishment Democrats give a shit when they have weak candidates with bad TV moments? You think they go, oh no, David Crowley had a bad TV moment. What will we do? No, they've locked the and they push and they push and they push until they win. Sometimes you guys have to do that as well. That's number one. And I'll give you the perfect example. I'll tell you why. Francesca Hong's attitude on Thanksgiving, using the term folks with an X, all this silliness, it's woke 1.0. It's annoying. It's academic. It's too woke. It's not appropriate for the masses. It's not great. It's not tailor-made to win an election. Sure, I agree. Okay, I don't disagree with you on that. But you know who else was also deploying woke 1.0 techniques? David Crowley was. David Crowley came out last week and said, calling me the establishment is a slur as a black man. That's also woke 1.0. Did anybody bring that up? Did anybody talk about it? Did many of you hear that? Maybe some of you in this community did because I covered it. But did CNN bring that up? He said it's racist to call me a black man establishment. Is that not also woke 1.0? And he did that last week. Francesca Hong's tweets are from 2020. What did we cover? What did we talk about extensively? Here's the problem. Here's the issue. People who think they're above being sheep still behave in sheep-like ways. You still got your notes. You still got geared. You still got negatively polarized by a candidate with a great platform. Okay? That's it. And many of my good friends did this as well. Many of the people that I like also got duped. Do you understand? So we have to be a little bit more disciplined. We have to be a little bit more organized. And we have to, we have to rally the troops at times. Because if we are divided in any way, shape, or form, it's open season at that point. I mean, look, Fox News immediately covering every single thing that I say on this broadcast. Yeah, I think a lot of people have grown accustomed to the way that Zoran carries himself or the way that Abdul carries himself. Not all of our candidates are going to be like that. All of those problems are solvable. With a good comms team and airtight messaging, you can solve those problems. Francesca, unfortunately, got cooked a little bit on that aspect. But here's the thing. Make no mistake. If we are adjusting the weight of different forces at play here, if I were to rank what the top force here was, it was Tony Evers, a very popular governor. Tony Evers knows ball. Establishment Democrats know ball. They know their voters. They know how they can whip them back into shape. That's it. That's it. We must not grow accustomed to success because of the sequence of victories that we have been able to eke out. It is good for them to underestimate us. It is not good for us to underestimate them. There's a reason why the establishment is the established center of power. Because the electability argument in the primaries and the harm reduction argument in the general is certainly successful enough to ensure that the Democrats continue winning against the Republicans and certainly against their left flank at times. Okay? I think more than anything, the Hong campaign proved that you need to be conducting a campaign that's moving at 100% all the way up until the very end. Mamdani's campaign knew this, and I think Hong's campaign was leaving gaps open at the final hour, which the establishment took advantage of. I can't speak for their ground game. I'm not familiar with what happened in the last week. I wasn't here. Okay? I wasn't there, sorry. I wasn't in Wisconsin, so I don't know. So, you have to remember that. Now, that can turn, and it has turned. How can the electability argument flip on the establishment? When you got respectable national backers who have won their races. This is where AOC comes in. This is where Bernie Sanders comes in. Now, I don't fault them for staying out of it. I wish they didn't. They miss significant. But the electability argument can flip on its head when you have Bernie Sanders endorsing you, right? It's not the end all be all. It's a coalition of different forces coming together and consolidating their support against their support for a particular candidate. But that is what it is. Because I am not going to be able to instill confidence in the necessary demographics that the candidate I'm backing is electable. Bernie will. My role, my responsibility, the way I see it, our community's job is to bring turnout and excitement from the under 45 base. And we did that. We did that with as many numbers as we possibly could, right? We did that with the Abdul race. We did that in Wisconsin, okay? Our community's goal is to mobilize. Our community's goal is to put boots on the ground. And we did that. We did our job. But we are not the persuasive force for electability. Okay? Now, the other side of the story for a national prog endorsement that is very important is fundraising. Because a lot of talk has revolved around the importance of linear TV ads. And I still think that there's an importance for linear TV ads. I've told this to other campaigns that I've, worked with. I've told them directly. I've told them in private, and I've told them publicly as well. You don't have to reinvent the wheel entirely, right? You have to still go and work with consultants, like the traditional consultants. They know what the they're talking about, right? You just have to be consistent on your message. You shouldn't allow the consultants to tailor your policies, to tailor your agenda, right? But there is a good balance that you have to strike. Zoran did that very well. Perhaps maybe a little bit too far. Maybe he leaned a little bit too much to the centrist Democratic Party consulting class a little bit, especially towards the end there, but it doesn't matter. He won. Okay? If you want to win elections, you got to go with winners. These guys know how to win. These guys have won elections before. And like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But you can't fundraise enough by just, coming on the HasanAbi broadcast, by going on Michael from Pennsylvania's broadcast. You have to get that national endorsement. You have to get the excitement. One Bernie Sanders email can overnight bring in $100,000. That's huge. That's as consequential as one media hit that you do or two media hits that you do with someone like myself. We raised like $57,000 in a couple hours, right? So the Bernie endorsement not only gives you credibility and actually flips the electability argument in your favor, but it also fundraises for you in a very meaningful manner. Okay? It fundraises for you, and then it opens up new opportunities. You can do defensive TV ads. You don't have to just be everywhere all at once, but it's good to also block out certain time, certain ad markets. It's good. It's good to play a defensive posture there. It's good to be everywhere all at once. So that's the thing. And also, it's becoming increasingly clear to me that if you don't have those big national prog endorsers, then that becomes a story in and of itself. This was a huge problem with the Shoykot race, if you recall. That actually played a major role in cooking Shoykot Chakrabarti, because he played his hand. He said, look, I work with AOC. And then people started asking AOC, why aren't you endorsing him? And that played a big role. That played a major role. So that's also important. So when Bernard is asked about endorsing certain candidates and he says, oh, I haven't paid attention to it, the media is going to turn that into a point of controversy, right? So I think our national progressives also have to be a little bit more careful, not careless, in how they talk about certain candidates. I think establishment Democrats do this very well. Elisa Slotkin is a great example of this. She very famously didn't endorse in the race. She didn't endorse Haley Stevens. She didn't endorse Abdullah Syed. And she also played around that issue very well. Our side needs to be able to do that. And I think sometimes we don't do that. AOC did do that, where she defended Francesca Hong. I don't think Bernie necessarily did it as well. But ultimately, it would have been far better if they had endorsed her. I mean, she would have won. But I assume that ironically, the numbers in the general were a toss-up for Francesca, and they were terrified of that, of what kind of blow that might deliver to the socialist movement broadly, the insurgent movement broadly, So, I can't speak to what kind of decisions were made, what kind of decisions were made in not endorsing Francesca. Okay, but yes, they made their decisions. At the end of the day, I still think that it would have it would have really eradicated some of the electability concerns for a lot of sympathizers who are diligent election watchers. This is the Democratic Party's base of support. There are a lot of people who love candidates, love policies, and will refuse to vote for them because they think these candidates are simply not electable because they heard on TV that they're not electable. That's exactly what happened. Here's one great example that bricks my brain. A number of late deciding Democratic primary voters who spoke to NBC News in Madison Tuesday ended up voting for Crowley. One of them, Ali Plummer, said of Hong, "I really back a lot of what she's saying. The DSA label doesn't shy me away at all. In fact, I probably would lean more towards that." But Plummer said she was concerned that Wisconsin as a whole might not want to back a Democratic socialist. "I voted for Crowley because I'm a risk-averse person. And I was reading a lot about who has the chance to beat Tom Tiffany in the larger election," Plummer said, adding, "We have to beat Tom Tiffany, so I voted for David Crowley." That voter would not have even questioned voting for Francesca Hong if there was a Bernie endorsement, right? Yeah, stunning primary loss. Stunning. Impactful. A lot of people in Wisconsin, Reddit also flipped. I'm not saying I don't think this is the outcome, but this race isn't officially called yet. What's the polymarket Kalshi? I will say, as a Hong supporter, it was mighty impressive to see Crowley drop out, restart his campaign in a week. Despite not being my personal choice, I'll be giving my full support. I voted for Hong to help spread excitement and shake things up, but a safe candidate like Crowley isn't a bad thing. I mean, these are normal assessments. This is correct. That's largely my position as well. That is largely my position as well. My cope is that I feel like the governorship rarely affects those outside their states that much, especially moderate milquetoast Dems like Crowley. Yeah, no, for sure. That's the major calculation, because what we are talking about here is a very different race. That's why I kept stressing the reality that red states vote for blue governors, blue states vote for red governors. The governor is a much more intimate role. It takes a much closer role in people's lives inside of the state. It's an interstate situation. It has nothing to do with the broader movement overall, even though it is significant because it shows that socialists can win statewide office even in a swing state. That's why it's consequential. But the way that people view the role of governor is I'm voting for a person that is going to deliver the trifecta. That was the primary concern of Wisconsin voters, and that's why Crowley won. Why do you say Crowley's a non-offensive and safe choice? He's pro-data center and pro-Israel. It's the exact same role flipped on its head. Francesca Hong was a safe vote because it's a D+7 race, and it's only getting worse for Republicans as we come closer to the general election. That's it. That's it. It matters not what the Democrat is pushing for unless they are openly and aggressively leaning into a certain stance, which I don't think David Crowley will lean into in the general. That would be electoral poison for him. I hope he doesn't do that, because he will actually snatch defeat from the jaws of victory that time around. But I think Tony Evers would probably stop him from doing that. Right? Tony Evers didn't back this guy in a last-ditch effort, only to have him fuck up all chances in the midterms and fuck up the trifecta. It's not going to happen. I have too much confidence in at least the Wisconsin Democratic Party, maybe not the national party, but the Wisconsin Democratic Party nonetheless, to not fuck that up. I think Francesca Hong will campaign with Crowley to make sure that, you know, our demands are heard and to make sure that our side still comes out and votes. You understand? I think there's still a crisis in confidence, and that's why these electoral victories matter a lot. There's still a crisis in confidence for the left flank. We still haven't proven our legitimacy. It's going to take time, but I'm confident we will be able to achieve it. That's why Zoran's governance, the association of good governance and democratic socialism, matter quite a bit. You know? That's why it's very important that Zoran succeed. It's very important that Abdul win his race. It's very important that these newcomers are dynamic. They're exciting, and people pay close attention to them, and their constituent services are great as well. Our job continues. It doesn't end once they, you know, get carried across the finish line. David Crowley gives a shout out to Francesca Hong and her campaign during his acceptance speech. I especially want to thank Francesca Hong. Her campaign reminded people across Wisconsin that there are no long shots when it comes to believing in a better future and fighting to expand opportunities to every family. The real opponent has always been Tom Tiffany. Sometimes election stories rhyme. Francesca Hong did lose, but she has a future if she navigates things well. You know what other young progressive candidate ran for governor who was very awkward in their first attempt and got crushed by the establishment machine? Abdul Al-Sayed. True. Thank
you. I was a high school linebacker, Nolan. You know, I brought my Constitution with me, and I know I'm not allowed to use a prop, but the Constitution is not a prop. Fact is that this Constitution protects my right to pray as I choose to pray, and also protects my right to aspire to the highest ideal of citizenship. And every time we hear this, it speaks to a long history of people who look a little bit different than the senator, trying to do something that is perfectly within their rights and then having their very Americanness questioned. We've seen this before. But to be frank, it's a distraction, because at the end of the day, the kind of exclusionary language that we're hearing is exactly what's locking people out all over the state. An education system that's failed our kids in Detroit, the fact that we can't even give people water in that city, the fact that Flint got poor.
I mean, it's not that cringe. He's literally hitting the same notes. I think you guys are trying to be, I mean, obviously the optics matter, aesthetics matter. It's kind of crazy. I mean, clavicular wasn't wrong. You know what I mean?
Poisoned 9,000 kids, and we're still worried about clean water. That kind of exclusionary thinking is exactly what's run government for too long. It's exactly what I'm standing up for. And as an American.
So yeah, in any case, yeah, I mean, look, there was a lot of greenness in the Hong campaign for sure. Yeah, what I'm saying is Francesca Hong needs to get jacked, okay? Just jacked to the gills. She needs to become a bodybuilder. But yeah, I don't feel as discouraged as some others are. Maybe there's a lot of people in Wisconsin that, you know, tirelessly knocked on as many doors as possible, and now you feel like, what did that amount to? Nothing. Do not feel discouraged. Do not feel discouraged. Think about where you were 2 years ago, and then think about where you are now. Okay? It is ridiculous. What is this? Yeah. Note on ads. The campaign was financially capable of purchasing cable ads, but they deliberately chose not to and rejected them as ineffective. Her campaign put out a statement that they were pursuing streamer ads to reach voters more efficiently and that they weren't running the campaign political consultants have run. Yeah, no, I know that. I know that. Like, part of it is money, but part of it is a deliberate attempt. They had some money. They could have done it. They didn't. They chose not to. I know. Streamer ads are good, but not as effective as TV ads. No, the TV ads are just, even if it's for blocking, it's still important. Absolutely a lot of discouragement here today. It's disappointing. I'm hopeful for a more progressive future. Guys, you're being delusional, and not in a good way. Sometimes it's good to be a little delusional, right? But you are insane if you think that this isn't a major attempt. What are we talking about, dude? We had a Democratic socialist run for a state seat, run for a statewide gubernatorial seat, and she came within like 3,000 votes. Historic levels of turnout. What are you talking about, man? 2 years ago, Zohran Mamdani was still considering running for mayor. 2 years ago, Zohran Mamdani was probably sitting around with a bunch of his friends in New York City DSA going, should I do this? You think we have a shot? And his friends were like, no, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And now, 2 years from that point, we had a Democratic socialist running for governor in a swing state. It's not a real swing state, but it doesn't matter. What are you talking about? Wake up. You cannot behave like newcomers. If you are a newcomer, hopefully you learn from the broader experience of where this movement is from 2 years ago, where this movement is from 10 years ago when it was non-existent. Okay? Some of you come in here and you go, all right, well, what the f-? I started getting excited about DSA when I saw the sequence of victories. And that's my expectation. Are you kidding me? Why do I always say being a leftist is about taking L's? You got to take L's. You got to learn how to take L's. You got to learn important lessons from why we took those L's. And we got to grow. People always look at the successes and they fail to consider the sequence of losses that led to the success. Whether it be Abdul al-Sayed in 2018 or whether it be Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020. We just got to keep doing the work. And we also have to reframe it. We also have to reframe it within the larger context. You did not fall from a coconut tree. Okay? We live within the context of everything that came before it. And everything that came before the Francesca Hong run was unbelievably consequential. And everything that will come after in the lead up, everything that will come after in the midterms will also build on this movement. Yeah, look at Francesca Hong's national endorsements, Ro Khanna, Ilhan Omar. Look at Peggy's national endorsements. And obviously, that's not a good comparison because the Minnesota race was 100% an anti-ICE race. It was a lock. It didn't look like a lock in the polls, but it was a lock nonetheless. You understand? Yeah. Francesca Hong, at the end of the day, got 85,000 more votes than Tony Evers. Okay? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? But this momentum, 313,000 for Crowley, 310,000 for Hong, proves the point I was making, that Wisconsin is not a swing state. Wisconsin is not a swing state at all. That's what I've been saying. So it would be a major mistake for the establishment Democrats if they don't lean in to the momentum that Francesca Hong and the DSA brought in. Okay? Sure, she lost by an ass hair. But that's a lot of voters. And they weren't voting for electability. They were voting for policy. That's the difference between Crowley and Hong as well, because Crowley voters were electability voters. So you have to listen to the base's demands, and I hope they do. I hope they don't fuck this up. But ultimately, you look at this turnout, you look at these numbers, not very good for the Republican side. If I'm Tom Tiffany, I'm shitting my pants, okay? I'm pissing, shitting, and farting in my diaper If I'm Tom Tiffany, I'm looking at this and going, uh-oh, not a great time to be a Republican. Not a great time at all to be a Republican. Okay? Very discouraging results for the Republican side. Not even close. Why is nobody bringing up the fact that only male DSA candidates seem to be winning? What are you talking about? Maylok Kuros, Daria Lisa, Claire, you're wrong. No one is bringing that fact up because it's not a fact. It's fiction. Most of our slate this time around has been women of color. Now, yeah, new governor poll on Wisconsin shows Crowley at 47 to Tom Tiffany's 44. That's wrong. It's going to be even higher margins than that, I think. But it's also entirely dependent on how Crowley, hugs and kisses the left flank here. Okay? But yeah, this is not even... I mean, this is such an encouraging moment, not a discouraging one. I don't know. I'm usually a very pessimistic guy. As you guys know, I'm a realistic guy. I'm a pessimist. I'm a realist, whatever. This is a very encouraging moment for our movement. I got to pee.
Wave and a surprise victory for the party establishment. Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong narrowly defeated by the establishment-backed David Crowley. Crowley posting overnight, "Wisconsin, let's get to work." And the state party chair calling for Democrats to come together, writing, "Tonight, Wisconsinites made their choice, and tomorrow, Democrats will unite around David Crowley." The primary was a nail-biter, Crowley only beating Hong by a few thousand votes, even as polls showed Hong with a comfortable lead. But many of the country's top progressives distanced themselves from Hong, who previously called to defund the police, and in a 2020 since-deleted social media post wrote, "Cancel Thanksgiving," saying it promoted colonialism. She's since said her views have changed.
Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our communities. And so I think I wanted to make sure that people understood that there are multiple views, but views can evolve.
Crowley, the Milwaukee County executive, will now face off against Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany, endorsed by President Trump. Meanwhile, in neighboring Minnesota, the progressive candidate Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan capturing the Democratic nomination for Senate, a victory for the party's left wing heading into the midterms. And overnight in South Carolina, in a test of the power of Trump's endorsement, Darlene Graham, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, failed to win more than 50% of the vote in the Republican primary to replace her brother on the November ballot, despite the complete and total support of the president.
I've been accused of not being a politician, guilty as charged. I will spend the next 2 weeks of this runoff meeting with voters and, unlike some politicians, listening to their concerns.
ABC News now projecting Graham will advance to a runoff against Republican Congressman Ralph Norman. So multiple tests overnight, but it's all really going to come down to who goes to the polls in November. And one more state where the president's endorsement came up short last night was Minnesota in the Republican race for governor. Mike Lindell, a close ally of...
No, not my goat. Not my goat. Not my goat. Hold up. We're still riding with Michael Pillow. Let's just say he has not conceded. Okay? So that's not a defeat. We know the Republicans stole the Republican election from the Republican Michael Pillow, who was endorsed by Donald Trump. The rest of the Republicans stole the election from Michael Pillow. Michael Pillow, please continue pushing. Please continue fighting the good fight. Stop the steal. Stop the steal. He's in it to win it. He is conceded. He has not conceded. Excuse me, conceded. More like he's honest. He's a brave warrior. Mike will rise again. Mr. Pillow, sir, we ride with you. We ride into battle with you, Mr. Pillow. We love you. This is perhaps an even more devastating moment than the Toby Durden moment. Okay, as you guys know, South Dakota, Turby Derby, running for governor of South Dakota. Larry Roden stole that from him. And it's very clear that Michael Pillow's election was stolen from under his watchful gaze.
President Trump's, who backed his baseless claims of election fraud, losing in the Republican primary overnight to the state Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth. That was the Republican primary for governor. What?
All right, Gio O'Brien for us. We appreciate it.
The headline.
But yeah, so I think I went up and down my analysis on this election, on the Crowley stuff. on Francesca Hong, what this defeat means, where we're at. Now, of course, the take machine at the take factory continues. Neera Tanden says this guy was Hong's biggest surrogate. As I've said, campaigning with Piker is a death trap, possibly in a primary, but certainly in the general election. To which I said, yes, this is part of why we came close to a victory, but ultimately lost. I should never be the biggest surrogate of a campaign. Pecan or national progs would have alleviated some of the electability concerns of Hong, which were overstated and outright weaponized in the last week blitz. Tightening comms is an easy fix for the general. Ultimately, the platform was good and brought historic turnout. There won't be a Republican in the governor mansion, and I'm happy for that. Now, this is actually much kinder than what Smira Tanden or Bira Tanden deserves, but, you know, we got to be graceful. We got to teach some of these assholes in D.C. how to behave when you actually lose. Okay? It's very important that they learn this lesson from a 35-year-old loudmouth Twitch streamer. Okay? Remember, this is a person who's worked in the Clinton administration, in the Biden administration. Well, she kind of worked in the Biden administration, and also the Obama one. And yet she behaves like a drunken moron on the timeline all the time. Okay? With regular frequency. We don't have to behave like that. We don't have to do that. Possibly because we're not barred out like she is. You know? I guess the Democrats needed their own Janine Perot, you know? So, yeah. But as I was saying, a lot of thoughts, a lot of takes. I don't, like I said, I don't think the Thanksgiving gate was as big of a problem as the electability concerns were. The electability concerns are still a primary motivator for the Democratic Party. And I will say this, here's the other truth. Okay. One, electability in the primaries and harm reduction in the general still carry lots of boomers when it's paired with a barrage of negative earned media, no defensive TV ads, no linear TV ads, no national prog endorsements that actually alleviate some of the concern of electability in the eyes of, you know, sympathetic voters in the primaries. All in all, an unbelievably impressive showing for Democratic Socialists of America in Wisconsin. Their ground game was incredible. Okay, so do not be discouraged. The other side of the story goes as follows. I think the Democrats are lazy. I think the establishment Democrats are lazy. They're unbelievably lazy for this reason, because they know they can hit that button over and over again and keep this shit airtight until these insurgent candidacies started winning races. Okay? That's also part of the reason why they have no vision, no policy whatsoever, because from their perspective, all they care about is winning those races and occupying those seats. They don't give a shit about governing. They don't give a shit about a legislative agenda. They don't care. They just want to win the race. They literally look at it as follows. It's like, yep, however I win this race, if I can occupy this seat and maybe even defend it against Republicans, it's fine. It's still better than a Republican occupying it, and everyone will shut the fuck up. They run to win. They don't run to govern. They don't run to legislate. They don't care. They don't have a legislative agenda. Okay? And this is why. This has made them lazy. Because if you can hit the electability button in the primaries and then hit the harm reduction button in the general, and sometimes you lose, but usually you win, then that's fine. That's how they operate. That's how they operate. It's unbelievable. But this is why they will lose to us. And then we will defeat the Republicans. We will have a much more resilient movement. And we will deliver results for the masses. Okay? That's it. No wonder Neera feels so comfortable appearing on camera cross-faded. Yeah, of course. Bold of you to assume that Democrats want to win. Yeah, I mean, they do. It's their job. It's their job. They like winning the races. They're fine with losing too sometimes. If it's, the rest of the party losing, or if it's Bernie losing, they'd be probably fine with that. They could eat that loss. But ultimately, yeah, of course they want to win. It's the job. It's you don't want to lose your job at the end of the day. That's also the reason why they hate me. That's also the reason why they hate us. That's also the reason why they hate this movement, right? Because we threaten their seats. We threaten their positions of power. We threaten their influence. If democracy thrives, well, their job gets more difficult. They now have to be responsive to the masses. They no longer can just rely on corporate donations to carry them into victory over and over again. From the great Tony Benn is apt here. There is no final victory, as there is no final defeat. There is just the same battle to be fought over and over again. So toughen up. Bloody toughen up. Yes. It's true. So that's it. But once again, we can use the electability argument to our advantage, but we just have to prove it. We have to prove it. It's that simple. We have to prove it. We have to prove it to the base. And then we have to prove that we can govern. Do you understand? We have to first prove that we are the electable ones, and we have to win and make sure that Republicans don't win these races to prove that to the base. But then after that, we have to prove that we can govern. We have to prove that we can push for the agenda that we promised and fight like hell for that. It's a long road, but I think we can accomplish it.
Absolutely is Wisconsin. We'll go back to the governor's race there because this was an upset. This is something that has given the establishment a sigh of relief this morning. Let's get right to Jeff Zeleny, who is live in Madison, Wisconsin. And Jeff, you and I have covered a lot of races, but we keep seeing things we've really never seen before. This was a huge comfort from behind victory, and this was close all night long.
John, good morning. We have never seen anything like this before. 1 month ago, David Crowley was out of this race. He suspended his campaign on July 8th for 10 days. But what happened in that 10-day period would obviously change the race. The lieutenant governor of Wisconsin, Sarah Rodriguez, dropped out of this campaign. Mandela Barnes, a former lieutenant governor, dropped out as well. Crowley got back in and roared back to a remarkable comeback last evening. As you were showing those results, there's no doubt that Francesca Hong was very strong in some college areas, a lot of those cities across Wisconsin. However, here in Dane County, in Madison, she also won this county, but David Crowley was also quite strong. That contributed to his victory as well. And as we talked to so many voters as they were casting their ballots, they liked Francesca Hong. They liked her call for change and this progressive strain of politics that has run through Wisconsin Democrats for years and years, more than a century, going back to fighting Bob LaFollette. But there was also deep concern about whether she could.
Yeah, that's it. It worked. It worked. Guys, shut the fuck up. Stop saying cattle. Okay? Sorry. It doesn't matter. You got to work with the base you have, not with the base you wish you had. You can't just say they're cattle and move on. Okay? We do not get the benefit of doing that in the way that establishment Democrats do. You want to win or you want to complain? That's it. That's it. You can't just go, oh, they're cattle. What do you do? And then feel disappointed. I never did that for Bernie Sanders as well. I talked about the problems of the Bernie Sanders campaign and the candidacy as well at the time. If they're cattle right now, then bust out the prods. Wake them up. It's your job. It's our job. It's that simple. We have to be convincing. If electability is the message, is the salient message that works, we have to do everything we can. Okay? It's crazy. But yeah, this is the final moment of discouragement. This is what I know is always happening in these races. This is also the encouraging aspect of this, is that people still want these policies. So it's important for David Crowley to push for them. I think the fact that she seriously underperformed highly educated counties and college towns compared to Abdul next door is proof that pro-Hong voters split for Crowley over electability. Yes. Yes. 100%. And that electability concern came entirely from the concocted establishment narrative. And at least in this race, they could point to data. They could say, look, Crowley's not a toss-up. Hong is. Okay? I'm not going to place a lot of emphasis on the polls. You want to know why? Because they did the opposite with Abdul, where the polls showed Abdul outperforming Haley Stevens against the Mike Rogers matchup. And the media still said Abdul is less electable. Abdul is less electable than Haley Stevens. So we know that it's not like they're relying on empirical evidence. It's not like they're relying on data every single time. They say the same thing every time. And we see this with Abdul's margin of victory being higher than David Crowley's margin of victory. And yet Abdul's margin of victory was a disappointing show out, a disappointing show for the left flank. David Crowley's much slimmer margin of victory was the establishment bulwark securing victory once again. It's over. The left movement is over. It only goes in one direction. It's the same with even someone like myself. My appearance is required for establishment Democrats. It's make it or break it. How dare Hasan not endorse Kamala Harris? How dare Hasan not go out and door knock for Kamala Harris? But then when I actually go out and door knock for candidates, they go, Hasan Piker is the reason why these candidates are losing. It only goes in one direction. It's propaganda. That's it. Wake up. Just do the work. It's that simple. Why do you think the same people that are like, how dare you refuse to endorse Kamala Harris? You could have been the make it or break it person. You should have done everything in your power to then turn around and say, what are you doing? Why are you involved in these elections? You should stay away from these elections. Okay? They will do everything they can. Establishment Democrats will do everything they can to drive home that narrative because they don't have policies that motivate the base. They know.
Could win in November. The question.
Look at this guy. This is the type of guy that unironically falls for the propaganda. Evoking Mao with the outfit doesn't help in the eyes of normie voters. Normie voters don't give a f. They don't know who I am, you stupid idiot. Shut the f up. There is not more than 10 voters that voted in the direction of one candidate over the other because they saw that I was wearing a Zhongshan suit at the College Democrats National Convention. What are you, stupid? Shut the f up. That is the least relevant part of this. If you are in any way, shape, or form sympathetic to the progressive cause, not even the Democratic Socialists of America, you have to be smarter than this. You have to be smarter than this. Please, I beg you. The average voter does not give a shit about this stuff. Okay? Ridiculous. I'd go so far as say, you'll see, by the end of this midterm season, people will be negatively polarized from all the coverage on Fox News. They're going to be like, enough. Why are we hearing about this Hasan guy? Talk about the cost of living crisis. Talk about the endless wars, please. The cope is crazy. Yes, dude, I'm the one who's coping. I'm the one who's coping. You're right. I'm the most salient election message, dude. You're right. Please take off your horse blinders. I beg you. Please lock the in. You just heard the CNN anchor literally mention what the primary concern was, but so many of you cannot rid yourself of the derangement that you have poisoned yourself with. Okay? There has never been a moment where I have overestimated my impact. It is you who have designed your worldview around what motivates me. That's your primary driver. You have invented this insane reality where you literally think, oh, how will this make Hasan feel? Will this make Hasan sad? If the answer is yes, I'm excited. Will this make Hasan excited? If the answer is yes, I hate it. It's crazy. Please, I urge you to live in reality, okay? Please live in the reality. You think she would have blamed you for Kamala's loss if you'd endorsed her? Her hypocrisy is confusing as hell for even her own followers. Yeah. Here's you in June saying you aren't a kingmaker. Hasan the Hun explains that he isn't a kingmaker and that his endorsement, which, while helpful on its own, works best in tandem with key factors within the campaigns. This is all the way back in June. Not that anybody ever listens to me. Wait, oh God, this clip is not working because it's all the thing. Here's the thing, okay? There's a perfect, harmonious relationship between my community, myself, and also the local organizations, specifically Democratic Socialists of America. Okay. And there are other orgs as well. You know, Sunrise Movement is another great one that's all over and it's very active. But what's interesting about this is it doesn't work on my, like, I'm not a kingmaker. I will never be able to like make or break a candidacy. I can give them a boost, a necessary boost. I can give them, additional media coverage. I can get them volunteers and door knockers. But the reality of the matter is the goals have to align, okay? So they have to have the fundamentals. First and foremost, they have to have the background. They have to have the organizing work or at least the advocacy work that they can point to beyond just like running, right? Beyond just running for office and then deciding on a whim that these are issues that you know will get you attention, right? So like their goals have to align with our goals. That's number one. Number two, they have to have the solid fundamentals. They have to have the ground game. They have to have people that are knocking on doors. They have to have real excitement behind them. And in that situation, if the policies align, if the goals align, then yes, we can have a perfect, harmonious relationship. And therefore, especially with a sequence of other like higher profile endorsements coming from Bernie Sanders or AOC, or in New York, obviously Zohran Mamdani, then we'll see what happens. But I think then that's the magic spot, right? It doesn't, no one is capable of winning or losing elections. It doesn't work that way. And I've never said it works that way. As a matter of fact, I've said the exact opposite. And yet for some strange reason, these guys never seem to listen to me. Yeah, the mainstream media narrative is always heads I win, tails you lose. That's it. That's it. So it's very important for people who are sympathetic to our cause or already loyal soldiers of our cause to not lean into this kind of idiotic narrative. Like you have every opportunity not to fall for this kind of very overt, very obvious propaganda that is supposed to work to discourage you. Okay. And yeah, the reaction was predictable. That's why I predicted it last night. I said, this is exactly how it's going to go. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Questions of electability here, John, were more pronounced than I have ever heard them. So we do know now that David Crowley will be accepting this victory in a speech in Milwaukee in just a couple hours. But the governor of the state of Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers, he campaigned at Crowley's side.
I know exactly
and
what
warned
tweet
Democrats
this is.
to not squander.
This is Shapiro's greatest take of all time. We're watching enormous misread of the results here in Wisconsin. The dumb take is that the DSA has reached its ceiling and the establishment is fighting back. That's totally wrong. The normie Dems are simply negotiating the terms of their surrender. Those terms are obvious. Democratic Party will ingest and mirror the key precepts of the DSA, and they won't go whole hog against DSA candidates who don't totally say the quiet part out loud. This is why Slotkin didn't endorse Stevens against Al Sayed in Michigan. It's why Schumers and Jeffries didn't endorse Cuomo against Mamdani in New York City. In return, DSA's most important figures will refrain from endorsing the very worst candidates. This is why Bernie and AOC didn't endorse Hong. If they had, she would have won. The goal of the pact is obvious. Candidates who are DSA in all but name, who receive unified Democratic support after the primaries, and who still have a shot at winning the general election. So don't be fooled. DSA is driving the car, choosing the direction. The normie Dems are just negotiating over the speed. So it's actually not the worst take from Ben, but it's also not completely correct. The DSA is not driving the seat. The DSA is not driving the car. That's ridiculous. I wish that was the case. And hopefully one day it will be the case, but we are not there yet. Okay, so they are like the establishment Democrats are absolutely doing their very best to put a stop to this, but they also are not stupid or at least crazy enough to just like let it fall apart to drive home the message that like the left can't win elections. So they have actually performed better than my expectations in that regard. I thought that they would be far more cynical, but Michael LaRosa is far from the common perspective in DC. Okay. Like Shannon Watts, Neera Tanden, these guys, I think, are going to lose a lot of prestige and, ironically enough, lose their comfortable sinecures that they're trying to defend right now when the midterms come around, if they keep up this narrative that they're constantly left bashing. That's what I think. And we saw this. We saw this with Abdul. He won the race. Immediately, the party consolidated support behind him. It was a little bit unexpected. I will admit I was very worried about Abdul's chance in the general if the Democratic Party didn't actually lend its support, because it's absolutely it's an absolute necessity. Guys like this will inevitably be cast aside. They'll be considered Republicans because they are Republicans, because they're endorsing Republicans. You endorse a Republican, it's over for you. It should be over for you. It's completely unacceptable. Get the out of here.
The Democrats to win. I think they're going to win the Senate. I think they're going to win the House. I want Chuck Schumer and Brian Schatz to be the next majority leaders. I want to do it without El Sayed. And that can be done. But this isn't what I signed up for. Totenkopf and SS and defending it and then defending. And Hasan Piker is just not the leader of my party. And it's okay for Democrats to say that. My old boss, Chris Matthews, was on TV this morning saying Democrats just need to do the hard part for politicians, which is sometimes standing up to your friends.
Yeah, no, this is an irredeemable statement. And I promise you, behind closed doors, I'm certain that even establishment Democrats are probably like, that guy doesn't represent anything. You should probably shut the fuck up. Okay? There's no shot, because I've seen the consolidation behind Abdul. This man is alone. He is sticking his neck out for donors, and he's probably trying to pivot to the right. Okay? He's trying to pivot to the right. He's already working with like the United Arab Emirates and stuff. His consulting firm is. It's not, it's guys like that, they're on the chopping block. I don't think they realize it, and it's great that they don't realize it. Okay? For the first time in my life, props to Chuck Schumer and Haley Stevens. Abdul explicitly says he will not vote for Schumer, but he's sending the DSCC for him anyway. Abdul says Stevens was dumb AIPAC rubber stamp in a suit, and she went all out for him. Credit where credit is due. Yes, because these guys are locking in. It's important because they care more about the Senate majority. At the end of the day, when push comes to shove, it's very clear that these people care more about the Senate majority than they do about advancing petty grievances. So those who are advancing petty grievances, like Neera Tanden and all of these other people, they will be inevitably cast aside. Okay? They will be on the chopping block. I care about the Senate majority. Of course I care about the Senate majority. I don't want to go to prison. I don't want my friends to go to prison. Like, what are we talking about? I don't think people who fancy themselves to be like these hard-headed radicals understand the amount of damage that Donald Trump has already caused and the amount of damage that he will continue to cause if there is no pushback, if there is no legislative hurdle that people can present in front of his, lame duck period. Neera won't be cast aside, be real. You're probably not wrong about that. As if Dems are difflam out. Guys, stop. Please. Okay? Please. This is where the marginal differences make dramatically, massively consequential outcomes, okay? You're being ridiculous. That's why I literally openly say I voted for Adam Schiff. You know what I mean? Come on. Successfully rage baited Hasan Piker. They call me the goat. I don't know, man. Brother, I'm going to keep it $150. Your life is literally meaningless if this is your ultimate goal, okay? I'm sorry. Please get better goals in your life. I promise you will live a happier and healthier life. Just dream bigger, okay? Dream big, King. Dream big. I love you. I want what's best for you, okay? Dream big. That's loser behavior. No one worth talking about calls you goat, big dog. Okay. Anyway. Contrarian take. This was the best possible result for DSA. Han coming out with a fingernail proves the appeal of DSA style politics and mod establishment's declining power. Had she won and likely gone on to lose? No. This is stupid. I just disagree. I disagree with the notion that Francesca Hong was going to lose in the general. I completely disagree with that. And it's the same principle as to why I think David Crowley is not going to lose in the general either, as long as he just like shuts the up about data centers and stuff. Okay. It is a national +7 Dem environment, and it's only getting worse every single day. Okay. It's only getting worse for Republicans every single day. Everyone is being delusional about this. Okay. The electability argument from the establishment Democrats was a way to weaponize turnout against Francesca Hong, and it worked. Okay, it worked. The idea that the idea that we're leaning into the same establishment narrative of electability is so dumb. Okay, it's so dumb. You're crazy. You're crazy. I don't think anyone is looking at the broader swings here. Oh, it's nutty. It's nutty. Normies hate the Republican Party right now. Okay? They are in charge. Everything sucks. Dog shit. You're being delusional. Yes, Caroline, leave it as out. We'll talk about it. What do you mean an endorsement from Sanders, Warren, AOC matters more than support from Hasan Piker and Michael from Pennsylvania? Shannon Watts brings up a point that I have made a million times over as though it's contentious. I don't know why. Do you think Fox will ask Trump if he disavows Hasan Piker like they do with every other politician? Trump will be like, well, I don't know him, but he looks right out of central casting. He has a lot of followers, you say. Wow. Turns out cancel Thanksgiving is not a winning message. Oh, shut the fuck up, Richie Torres.
Under all their gains here. So that certainly was a big.
How can you overcome the electability argument? Winning. That's it. Winning. I don't know if you've seen this blatant defamation against you by the RNC. There needs to be a correction issued. RNC national spokesperson Natalie Baldessari responded to Piker's remarks in a statement Fox News Digital on Wednesday, calling on Democrats to disavow the controversial streamer. Hasan Piker is a Hamas-hugging radical with a long history of threatening rape and violence against those he disagrees with. Democrats would do right to disavow him, but they'll continue to bend to his will like spineless, useful idiots. What the Bro, they're getting extra insane. I don't know how to deal with something like this. I actually have no idea what to do here. Hasan Piker warns that knives will be out after socialist Francesca Hong falls in Wisconsin upset. Far-left streamer warned Tuesday night that the knives will be out for the socialist left after Wisconsin state rep Francesca Hong lost the gubernatorial primary to Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. Piker argued during his live stream that the Democratic establishment figures will work harder to stop insurgent candidates because they no longer underestimate the progressive movement. Piker, who appeared alongside Representative Ilhan Omar at an August campaign rally, portrayed the loss as a warning for socialists seeking to build on recent primary victories. It will be more difficult, though, because the establishment will not underestimate us. It will continue to undermine us, but they will not underestimate us, Piker said, so the knives will be out. RNC national spokesperson Natalie Baldessari responded to Piker in remarks to Fox News Digital. Hasan Piker is a Hamas-hugging radical with a long history of threatening rape and violence against those he disagrees with. What the fuck is this person saying? The Wisconsin primary became a contest between the party's socialist left and its more traditional coalition. Hong, a Democratic Socialists of America member, was backed by Representatives Ilhan Omar, Ro Khanna, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, and Wisconsin-based DSA chapters. After initially leaving the race, Crowley re-entered in the contest with the endorsement of retiring Governor Tony Evers and accumulated support from the professional firefighters of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Laborers District Council, IBEV, Wisconsin. Hong previously sought to put distance between herself and Piker after appearing on his live stream for a campaign fundraiser, saying in July, MS Now reports interview that sharing a platform with someone did not mean she endorsed everything the host has said. Wait, what? Former Los Angeles, oh God. Beetlejuice Bob isn't take the Hong loss well, Pratt said on X. The DSA are freaking out that everyone is realizing Emperor Mao has no clothes. Piker said Crowley's victory was far from the worst result and predicted the Democrat would defeat Republican Representative Tom Tiffany in November. Crowley still, if he wins, is going to defeat Tom Tiffany, and that's a good thing, okay? I stand on that, Piker said. The Wisconsin Democratic gubernatorial primary was not called until early Wednesday after Milwaukee election officials said human error delayed the county's vote count. 5 of the 9 member states, the rest is just like describing what happened. This is Natalie Baldessari. Jesus Christ. That's terrifying. What is going on with the Laura Loomer clones in the Republican Party? What the heliante, my man? What the hell? What the hell? Wait, Fox News kind of did justice to that quote, right? I was expecting them to say it was a violence type quote. No, they're not. They're quoting me accurately. Caroline Leavitt is leaving. Yes, we're going to talk about that later.
But there is no question that there's some unifying to be done. That starts this morning with an eye on November, John.
And again, as you point out, Francesca Hong was divisive. Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they did not endorse her as they had endorsed Abdul Al-Sayed in the Michigan Senate Democratic primary there. I want to say I've been on cable the last few days a lot. It's where I work, and I've heard a lot of Republicans with talking points. They were loaded for bear on Francesca Hong. Francesca Hong was the candidate they were focused on. They were already trying to nationalize her, what they saw as her imminent victory in Wisconsin. How surprised are Republicans this morning?
John, they are very surprised. And not only were they talking about this campaign and how they would effectively use some of her comments, they were trying to prop her up at the same time. A remarkable play here. The Republican Governors Association was spending more than $4 million running ads showing that she's a strong progressive. Well, that was seen as a way to effectively meddle in this race. So Republicans were hoping to run against her. That did not happen. So this race is an example of the establishment striking back. But John, I'm also thinking back to an interview I had with David Crowley on Sunday evening. I asked him about that establishment thing. He said, look, I'm established, but I am not a member of the establishment. If he would win, he would be the first African-American governor right here in Wisconsin.
I want to start with you, Nicholas. What did you see in this, what do we call it, the Rust Belt, the Blue Wall? Like, what are we learning from last night?
You know, I'll put my Midwesterner hat on.
They love when we do that, by the way. Yeah, they're excited. They're excited. We know you want this.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, what we saw last night was Democratic primary voters really picking electability when it mattered in the state. Like, you know, in Wisconsin, we saw them pick the candidate who, by all accounts, is the more centrist one, maybe would fare better in a general election. But the counterpoint to that is Minnesota, where voters there picked the more progressive Senate candidate, Peggy Flanagan, over Angie Craig, the more centrist House member who was running for Senate. But that's a much bluer state, so perhaps the electability argument just didn't work as well.
Exactly. One of the things that I'm interested in, Josh, because you've worked for both Kamala Harris, like a person who is known for being maybe too cautious, right? Like not known necessarily for their retail politics and style, and then also Bernie Sanders, who is still out there now at this point trying to play kingmaker. What do you make of how voters are talking about this?
I think that what we're seeing is progressive candidates winning when they are strong candidates, when they're running strong races, and when they take on power. And I think we saw that with Peggy Flanagan. I think we saw it in Michigan with Abdul Al-Sayed. And I think, frankly, we're going to see it with Brian Poindexter in his race against Max Miller, because it's, you know, when we run working people who are taking on the powers that be, that are taking on corporate greed, I think Democrats and progressives do very well.
Yeah, and then Bernie Sanders didn't back Francesca Hong, and Democrats have been squawking left and right. One operative telling Politico she just doesn't have the Zoran ability to sort of laugh it off or pitch it.
I'm beginning to get really annoyed with this analysis as well. Even if truthful, it's just like, even if there's like legitimacy to the take, I don't like it. Okay, I don't like it. It's just so goddamn annoying, especially because like Zoran is very gifted, very talented, right? He's very charismatic. And what's been frustrating about this is that because it's usually from like left sympathetic figures, it's usually from figures outside of the movement, like the social democrats or the people who are usually like, well, I don't think Zoran, people who said, I don't think Zoran is electable before he became electable, before he won the election. Now they do the same thing to Francesca Hong. Now, and they were the same people who were doing it to Daria Liza, right? It's just very annoying. At the end of the day, no, it's not misogynistic. I mean, I'm sure misogyny plays a role in this, but it's not the end all be all. I don't like it because they forget how important Zoran's policy platform was. They forget the importance of the movement. They forget the importance of the policy platform. Francesca Hong had that, okay? Guys, let's talk about Hong Dynasty. Go, 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 Francesca. It's the Jews. It was Israel. Guy who made a DSA supporter sock account to make it seem like this would be our interpretation did realize that this is not something that I would ever say in this particular race or ever at all. It's the Jews is a ridiculous assessment. And immediately goes, oh, well, since there isn't this kind of interpretation, this kind of analysis here, I'll just make it up on my own. Good one, dude. I'm serious. Listen, dude, listen. Shouldn't this be a wake-up call for you? If that's what you thought if that's what you thought today's events were going to unfold, like this kind of commentary for me, and it's not happening, shouldn't you just go, hey, maybe I misunderstood what this guy is about. Maybe I misunderstood that this guy is not this like vicious anti-Semite. Instead, you want to live out that dream. Instead, you want to live out the meme itself. How is this any different than what Steven Crowder does? How is it any different than what like Republicans do usually when they go, because I know that's a dumbass liberal, right? It's one of those like centrist liberal, right-wing liberal guys who's trolling, right? This is exactly what Steven Crowder used to do when he was like, oh, transgenders are actually dressing up. It's men dressing up as women. And then when that doesn't happen, you just become that person, right? Like that's what Steven Crowder used to do all the time. We couldn't find a single person who was fake trans just to like win a weightlifting competition, so we became that person. It's very silly. It's very weird. I have big info on Brian. What?
Effectively, the former chairman of the Wisconsin Democratic Party saying this is not the year to test a Democratic Socialist. This isn't New York. And David Axelrod hitting her with El Sayed is a serious person. She is a font of zany liberal faculty lounge exotica. The word from David Axelrod. Yeah, we were talking about this during the break, which is it's one thing to be talking within your activist community and in your primary where this stuff actually, you get a lot of nods and snaps, right? Like she wasn't just sitting on a bench yelling stuff and suddenly ahead in the primary.
Yeah, and you saw, for example, in El Sayed and just in the neighboring state that he was trying to seem more moderate. He was running what felt like a tighter, more serious race.
He's also run a bunch of times, so he's had a couple more practice.
And ultimately, politics comes down to perception, so I do think gauging someone less on the very specifics of their policy and more on the way that they interface with voters, more on the way that they're perceived. It didn't help that she had some tremendous gaffes going into the last week of the race. Not liking Thanksgiving is not quite a popular
But you're right,
policy.
because the last week is what matters. That's when Democrats got their act together and said, hey, you who dropped out, you come back. You know what I mean? And there was this, like, it was described as chaotic, no?
Yeah, extremely chaotic. Like, you know, we saw the number up on the street, and this, you know, despite all of the noise, this was a race that was separated by 3,000 votes, which is, you know, an incredibly close margin, and speaks to how much this narrowed in the final days of the race, especially when, you know, polling, which by all accounts seems to have missed in a lot of Democratic primaries this season, had hung ahead by, you know, as double digits in some surveys.
There was this, some of the centrists who, with the welcome pack, they told Politico this week, many Democratic primary voters may want to touch the hot stove, but the independents who can vote.
Yeah, I'm going to say something about this, like, Don't Sippy Ashley account. I don't want you guys to, like, attack this person at all, but I do think there are some accounts out there, anonymous accounts, that present themselves as, like, progressive, that say very strange things at times, very weird things. They're not from this movement. They're not a part of this movement. And I think that they're here as infiltrators. It does strike me as a plant from time to time. I will admit that there are some who used to be like super pro-Palestine. For example, there's like content creators on TikTok that used to be super pro-Palestine and now they're pro-Israel. That swap, that switch up is so severe and so glaringly obvious that it's like fairly easy to read it out as a plant for sure. The Twitter poster is utterly irrelevant, but it is interesting sometimes when people that don't have any, that just don't have any experience in this movement out of nowhere. They just come out of nowhere. They start having takes, and it's like some of the takes are good, some of them you agree with, and then all of a sudden you start seeing them pop up more and more, right? Like this kind of thing. I'll say something that will anger some leftists. If you're running in a purple or swing state, I don't think campaigning with Hasan Piker is worth the potential political risk. You don't need his support to win. Many leftists have won comfortably without it, and associating with them will invite negative media coverage, distract voters from your message, and force you to spend time defending controversies, yada, yada, yada. While candidates in deep blue cities may be able to withstand that kind of scrutiny with endorsement figures like AOC and Bernie Sanders or Zoran Mamdani, the political environment is very different in competitive states. this stuff is very strange. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why, but I have noticed this account make this like significant turn right around the same time that some of these other accounts that used to be pro-Palestine objectively and openly become like pro-Israel out of nowhere. So just, you know, something to pay attention to. There are some paid accounts out there. I'll give you one example of this, that she hates you because of the Dari code. I don't think that's the reason. I think there's some other reason. I suspect that because it doesn't make sense. They like all of the same candidates that I like. They just hate my involvement personally. It's just weird. And it's coming right as here. This is what I was going to show you. Yeah, this woman is a grifter. Stay away from this account, this Caitlin Hennessy account. Here.
Has anyone else noticed this rise in shitlib content? Basically, all these influencers are coming on here trying to fight against the progressive movement in the Democratic Party by parroting these annoying liberal talking points. And here, I'll give you an example of one of these people who I've seen be doing this when it comes to the issue of Israel or Palestine, and how they literally cannot pick a narrative, presumably because they got paid off to do so.
No one asked if Germany had a right to exist, nor do they ask if North Korea does, or Iran.
And yet the funny thing is, it's like, I scrolled through your page, and just a couple months earlier, I saw that you were posting stuff like this.
I'm not seeing Americans talk about this yet, but the United Nations Human Rights Council has had to once again call out Israel for crimes against humanity. You know, we're going to lecture China on sending weapons to Iran to defend itself when we're giving weapons to Israel to commit genocide in Gaza. And you hope Hezbollah doesn't break the ceasefire. Where's the warning to the country that breaks ceasefires more than
Caitlin, you forgot to take the Palestine flag out while you're parroting all these Hasbara talking points. You should really probably take that out of your bio. I'm just saying, it's not a great. And this is going to happen again and again and again in the Democratic Party as long as the liberal establishment
Some of these guys are mercenaries, like for sure. For a lot of them, it's just about making money, right? And as a mercenary, I think the most charitable interpretation I have is like they tried to make a living and they tried to like generate a lot of attention for themselves by being pro-Palestine, and now they're being paid to do the opposite, right? Because that's much of a switch up. Like even standing 10 toes down and like defending Hezbollah to then talking about like Israel in this way, it doesn't make any sense unless there's money involved. And there has to be a lot of money involved in this stuff, considering how much mainstream media attention is focused, and how these guys have also tailored their message directly at odds with their prior positions in accordance to the mainstream message. Okay?
Taking control. They'll talk nice, say what they need to garner votes and support, and then turn around and be political opportunists at the first given opportunity.
The most charitable, the least charitable interpretation, because that's the most charitable interpretation. The least charitable interpretation that they were always Hasbara operatives, but they wanted to win favor with the ranks of the pro-Palestine movement to then go around and start only criticizing people that are pro-Palestine. So they wanted to like have more of an impact. So they were literally Hasbara operatives from the start. That's the least charitable interpretation. The most charitable interpretation is that they just like thought that they could generate a lot of impact, generate a lot of like goodwill, and then, you know, continue being pro-Palestine and stuff. But it just didn't work out that way, and they got more money being pro-Israel.
Some of this is inevitable in politics. I'm not saying that that's, you know, a golden standard. Obviously, we've seen that like Mamdani and AOC and now Abdul Al-Sayed have kind of started to fold themselves into the establishment, which for the record, I think is a good thing. I think trying to be cooperative in politics is a good thing. But being actively deceptive like this and portraying your viewpoints as one thing and then pivoting to another is just deceptive.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts about this. Caitlin, if you're watching this, I really hope that you're able to be a little bit more ethical and grow backbone. You know, say what you truly support. If you really support Israel, then say it with your chest. If you really support Palestine, then say it with your chest. But what you shouldn't do is play this game of political opportunism where you pander to both sides and hope that one will eventually give you a better offer. I mean,
Yeah, many such cases, by the way. I mean, there's a lot. There are a lot of people like this. It's that one lady that is the Ethan Klein grifter, the fake demon who despises me, right? Like, she literally used to be a fan of mine. She used to be a fan of Taylor Lorenz. She used to be a fan and was like very critical of Kamala Harris. And then Ethan Klein literally hired her. And now she opposes every single viewpoint that she previously held. Like, it's crazy. Sometimes they're not fast enough in deleting their previous takes. Girl with a microphone, right? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. A lot of these people are bought and sold. Some people get negatively polarized. I think that's a real thing. Like some people, some people see too much friction in their algorithm on their timeline if they spend a good deal of time on Twitter, and they just like lose sight of who they used to be, for sure. But yeah, I think there are people who just make that pivot because they just get paid, and this is about making money. You know what I mean? And that girl with a microphone lady is a great example of this. Going from being a loud and vociferous supporter of the pro-Palestine movement to basically shifting on all of their policies. Yeah. Every few months, the third way new liberal centrist lobbyists shove an annoying youngish red shirt into the discourse for how you doing fellow kids purposes who disappears a few months later. Yeah. Yeah. The Yamizi, the former Biden White House official, is like one of the new, this is the more professional version of events. I'm just talking about the indie media side of things, right? Like girl with a microphone, this other lady that we're looking at, Caitlin Hennessy, like they are the less professional independent media actors. Okay. The former Biden staffer that is a third way advocate is the more professional version of this, right? So just remember that when you see a take that just like smells funny, when you see a take that looks funny, and you're just like, what the is this person saying? When you see a take that is from like a aesthetically progressive person, you know, and they're just saying silly things. They're just attacking the left. They're attacking left media. They're attacking the left media. They're attacking the movement. They're attacking the campaigns. And they're like, oh, it's just that like I'm a reasonable, pragmatic, progressive. Like they're most likely either getting paid to do this or they've just been negatively polarized. Like if they don't have the experience, if they don't have the work to show their progressive background, then it could be a number of different reasons as to why they're doing this, right? Timothy Faust says, the policy director for Francesca Hong says, well, that was rough, but I've learned a few things. One, there's a movement in Wisconsin waiting to be tapped. If a campaign is actual policy platform, lots of people will engage with it. 85% of the analysis you see from people who don't live here are total bullshit. Got to assume number 3 is true for every campaign or election I've ever had an opinion on in my life. A good lesson for T-Bone. Also, I'm extremely proud of my policy team. We had 111 policies we researched and put forward, and you bet your ass people wanted to talk about every single one. Some of them shifted the entire race. Some of them were unprecedented in American state politics. Having good policies doesn't win elections on its own, but site analytics show that an astonishing number of people wanted to read our policy pages for 3+ minutes at a time. You got to respect people, and treating their lives with the seriousness they deserve requires work. I have no analysis because I know very little about Wisconsin. I was in Madison for a few days like 10 years ago. I think journalists like Dan Schaefer have done a much better job drawing the shape of the campaign than folks who want to jam into a heuristic about how they think everyone in America works. Yeah. I believe the ultras are sincere and moronic. This kind of thing is more suspicious to me. To clarify, are you saying the same thing about that Don't Sippy account? Because I disagree with that one take, but I haven't seen anything else that makes me think she's grifting her or whatever. I'm just very suspicious because it's an anonymous account. I don't know anything about them. I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them. I don't know when they popped up. She's also a Plattner dead ender, which was also a red flag in and of itself. It's just very suspicious. When you have an anonymous new account, it's always suspicious. Who are you? Are you AI? Like, where did you come from? Why are you still a Plattner dead ender? What is your organizational background? Have you done organizing? Are you a part of a movement? Are you a part of a group? Are you Sunrise Movement? Are you Gen Z for Change? These sorts of things actually, at least to a certain degree, show me like what your perspective looks like, why you're saying certain things. If I can't make sense of it, it just like weirds me out. Caitlin Hennessy is a much more cut and dry grifter, you know, much more straightforward grifter, farmed as much eyeballs and attention as she possibly could by weaponizing the pro-Palestine movement and that momentum, only to then turn around and get the bag to flip entirely, right? But pro-Israelis become pro-Palestinian every day. Why can't you imagine the other way? Oh, great question. Momentum, organic momentum. Do you think Israel is getting more popular by the day or less popular by the day? Do you think it's more likely for people to go against a lifetime of propaganda and then recognize the truth of the matter? Or do you think it's the opposite? That's it. That's the reason why we say this. That's the reason why we say it's most likely money playing a role here. You know? Yeah, the Don't Sippy account literally compared Graham Plattner's accuser to Emmett Till's accuser. It's nutty. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know what kind of like movement that they were trying to tap into with that one. So yeah, there are a couple takes that I see from an account like that just rub me super weirdly. Okay, rub me the wrong way. I just, it just doesn't pass my smell test. That's all I'm saying.
Vote in Democratic primaries can turn out in large enough numbers to slap their hand away. Who did the slapping?
Well, I just think generally in Wisconsin, races come down to often 1 percentage point, even less than one. So, again, it's really hard to win. I mean, not only with zany policies like not liking Thanksgiving, but what does permanent affordability mean?
Yeah.
This was a central claim.
Theory?
Yes,
Black
please.
voters, rural white voters. Right? This is what happens in Democratic primaries. This is how you get a Joe Biden coming out on top in South Carolina. Like, I think that Michael Crowley did benefit from an energized black vote. We'll see if the numbers bear that out. But there's been a lot of talk about whether this left flank is understanding who's in the coalition and how to expand it. Can I let you finish? I didn't mean to interrupt. But that's my theory, that there's some people who are out there who are like, chill, we're not doing that.
Absolutely. And when you have states with large rural populations too, polling has floundered in so many places across the country. So I think that's another issue.
Well, look, I think that there's going to be some finger wagging from the centrists here, thinking that their theory of the case was right all along. I would not put a lot of credence to that. I think that the candidates that show that they're really willing, ready, and able to take on power are doing very well, and the ones that voters perceive as not ready, willing, and able to take on power are not doing so well.
Well, here's what's different. I think, who did you mention who won over Angie?
Peggy Flanagan.
Peggy Flanagan. One of the things she was dealing with is the person she was competing against was actually took some hit on immigration in a state that's very much dealing with the issue. So it wasn't just saying like, oh, you're a moderate, we don't care.
Yeah, this is also precisely the reason why the comparison that even Ed and Germentum tried to make between Peggy Flanagan and Francesca Hong was a very silly one. I've been to both of these states. I know what the movements look like in both of these states. I've been on the ground, and I can tell you, very different environment, very different level of anger, very different experiences for the broader electorate. Okay, what did Angie Craig in was the Laken Riley Act. Okay, Laken Riley is a ticking time bomb for a lot of these candidates that tried to hide the fact that they were pro-ICE and now they're anti-ICE, especially in a place like Minnesota. Minnesota, due to Operation Metro Surge, straight up was occupied by the Trump administration. Okay? This is an anti-ICE and anti-Israel electorate broadly. So if you're AIPAC backed, people are not going to trust you. It's not going to go away. If you're pro-ICE at any point, especially after Trump won If especially after Trump won, when you like leaned into that shit, it's going to be tough for you. The only difference, the only exception I would make is John Ossoff, I think. Because John Ossoff is well, one, not opposed by anyone from his left flank. That's number one, like anyone with viability, as far as I know. And two, is a charismatic enough orator to be able to overcome those issues. But if there is a viable and robust left flank response, even in a state like Georgia, yes, Ossoff would be cooked. Bro, you still pushing this narrative? What? What narrative? What is the narrative? Explain what you mean. Yeah, 1-to-1 Flanagan, Operation Metro Surge tweet. My voting precinct is located in the number 3 zip code for ICE abductions during Operation Metro Surge, and it went 85% for Peggy Flanagan. There you go. That's the point. Also, Peggy Flanagan did go beast mode against ICE. She said, we need to rip ICE apart and stop them from terrorizing our neighbors.
We need to rip ICE apart and stop them from terrorizing our neighbors. And I know that we can fix our broken immigration system, secure the border, and create a real pathway to citizenship that aligns with our values.
That was a great take from her, by the way. Why am I only learning about her now? I didn't really cover the Peggy Flanagan race all that much. That's probably why. You should get, you should have a more diverse media diet. Peggy is Minnesota from Wellstone. Craig is nothing. Peggy has been in since her teenage years. Yeah, no, she's great. Is she the most progressive? No, but it doesn't matter. She's great. She's a Bernie-crat. I will tell you what my attitude was to the Peggy Flanagan race. I've been in this state. I know that I have a lot of HasanAbi heads in the state. There are a lot of people in this state that were excited about Peggy. But here's an example of a candidate that I did not feel comfortable like openly associating with, not even from my calculation, but from the calculation of how they would be able to maneuver the negative media attention. I did worry that if I were to go and do a rally with Peggy, which, by the way, they didn't even ask for the record, full disclosure, right? But if I were to go out and stump for Peggy Flanagan, there would be a lot of negative attack ads against her. And I don't think that she would be able to overcome that negative association because she's not ride or die. You know what I mean? Like, she's more progressive. She's a Bernie-crat, but she's far from a part of this movement overall, right? And also, she didn't even need it, regardless, at the end of the day. But she would not. Yeah, she's a progressive. She's not a socialist. She's not even like Abdul as far as foreign policy goes. So, I certainly was worried that an association of that sort would backfire because she would not be able to handle the comms. She would not be able to turn the narrative around to make her to make this moment of the spotlight work in her favor, right? So she is definitely, even on the issue of Israel, far better than most Senate candidates and far better than most senators that are in office, right? And she is an ally, but I would not go so far as to say that she's an unbelievably progressive force. I mean, she's definitely far more progressive than the average Democratic senator, but still not like a person that I would feel confident would be able to actively take advantage of the extra media attention and flip it in her favor. So it would have been a negative. I think it would have been, my association with her would have been negative. Like, I'm pretty open about this, right? I'm pretty open about like what could backfire, an association that could technically backfire. Stick a fork in it. Peggy Flanagan defeats Angie Craig in the Democratic primary. Pro-Flanagan outside groups were outspent 4.3 times by pro-Craig outside groups. Flanagan was endorsed by Sanders, Warren, Van Hollen, and other progressives. So she's somewhere in between a Warrenite and a Sandernista, right? You're acting like she's Kamala Harris, bro. She's well to the left of the average Democrat Congress. No, I'm not. I'm not saying she's a Kamala Harris style candidate. I'm not saying that at all. You were at the Peggy rally? What is this? It's just you and me, baby. Look deeply into my eyes. Watching all my ladies sweep the primaries on my preferred news network live at the Peggy Flanagan. That's funny. Yeah, I'm excited about her. I work in local Minnesota media. Some of these people would beat the America Deserve 9/11 dead horse for months. Yeah, that's not even what I'm talking about. That's ineffective. We've seen that is ineffective. It's more so effective if the campaign is not fully on board with being able to flip that negative attention into a positive one. Do you understand? Like the attack ads are they're not consequential unless you don't know how to handle them. Okay? Do you understand? You can argue candidate tweets are more effective than your 9/11 moment. Yes, 100%. Like the 9/11 thing is an ineffective line of attack. It's probably more consequential for the candidates if they have. Are you saying you think she would have dropped the ball and disavow you if there was too much pressure? Yes. That's and that is that would give so much momentum to the actual effectiveness of those attack ads because it would make her look weak. Yeah, seemingly the winning political strategy in Democratic primaries is just to go in front of the media and be like, yeah, it's completely over. We're all going to die for the entire week before the election. Yeah, Senator Bernie Sanders tells CBS Face the Nation he's not confident Peggy Flanagan will win the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate in Minnesota. No, I'm not confident. I think it's going to be a very close race. She's being outspent 7-1. Yeah, for all the Bernie is the election whisperer guys, remember this line? Yeah, he said that. He said that literally 2 days out from the election, and I guess it lit a fire under everyone's ass. That's what Tony Evers did too. That was literally the Tony Evers strategy. Funny enough, Flanagan was the only major Democrat in Minnesota to support the January 23 shutdown against ICE in the lead up to the shutdown rather than after it started, and supporting it was vaguely safe. Yeah. Only 4 articles of you today. East Coast Journal outlets are 1 hour away from end of day. Yeah, they got their one Crowley victory. That's it. So there's no more reason to cover HasanAbi Piker. The goal here is to do a disciplining operation.
About you. It was somebody who the voter had said, oh, you voted for the Lincoln-Riley Act. As Democrats, we are not into that, and they were punished for it, right? Is that different than the progressive winning?
Hasan, why are you the dumbest person on Twitch and think you can have it all your way? What you do is the right, and what others do is wrong. I don't think that way.
More than the moderate being punished.
Yeah, I think so. And also, I feel like too often, those of us in DC and those of us in politics think about these buckets or labels as centrist or lefty or Democrat or Republican. And I think people are much more in touch with how the political issues are touching their lives locally, and they go with a candidate who's more responsive to that.
Hasan Reactions, one of the best ones in the React channel.